Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, but you already know that because you are sitting there on the edges of your seats waiting anxiously for the April 2015 TABS 3 Virtual User Group meeting to begin. And chances are, if you're waiting on the edges of your seats, it's because you've been here before. And if you've been here before, then you know that I'm a nerd. Today, we are going to talk about, what are we going to talk about, Mary Jo? I guess I should have a keyboard turned on, don't you think? Rates and fatal errors. So we are talking about rates and everything that has to do with rates. Mary Jo is going to take you through every different way that you could possibly send a rate. And I am going to take you through fatal errors and what to do when you get them and how to see them and how not to worry about them, at least not worry about printing that screen that's got 8 million lines. We'll talk more about that. But before we do that, a little bit of housekeeping. This thing right here, I must not be showing my screen because Mary Jo's screen isn't changing like mine is. There we go. This thing right here is our GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar control panel. If you are still seeing this, other than the fact that you're seeing it on my screen, if you're still seeing this on the right-hand side of your screen, that's because you have not pressed this little button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, because had you pressed that button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, this big control panel screen would have slid right off the right-hand side of the screen. And when you do that, this button then changes into a button that looks more like arrows pointing to the left, because that's how you get it back. Why would you want to get it back? Why? Because you're shy and you have a question, of course. If you have a question and are shy, we'll get into that in a second, you can type that question here. You can remember to hit send. And Leanne, our Simply Humble moderator for today, will recognize that you have a question. She will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at just the right moment, and she will ask your question on your behalf. Now, a couple things to remember here. One, you may have follow-up questions. And two, if it's me talking especially, I may ramble and not actually be answering the question that you've asked. If either of those things happens, all you have to do is to remember to continue to type your follow-up questions or whatever it is you need to get me or Mary Jo back on track, and keep remembering to hit send, and Leanne will keep interrupting us at just the right time to ask those follow-up questions or to keep one of us at least on track. Now, if you're not feeling shy and you have a question, every once in a while someone does this. It's always an exciting moment for us. This button that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upward in front of it, that means raise your hand. So if you raise your hand, same thing happens. Leanne, our Simply Humble for the day moderator, will recognize that you have a question. She will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at just the right time. But then what she'll do is she'll unmute your microphone and ask your own question. Now, keep in mind a couple things. A, this is an open channel of communication. That means no Fritos. That means no Doritos. Raisins are approved. So you will remain in a state of communication with whoever you're talking to, whoever is answering your question, until we're done. So you can ask your own follow-up questions. You can interrupt us and get us back on track as long as you refrain from using Fritos or Doritos or any other type of crunchy snack. When you're done, Leanne will mute you back up, and you can go back to eating lunch if that happens to be what you're doing. So I'm going to press the magic buttons, but while I'm doing that, I am going to let everyone know that version 15.1 and 15.2, I've been talking about this for months. I'm not going to stop. Version 15.1 and 15.2 are being sunsetted in June, or is it July? It's one of those J months. And what that means is, A, you won't be able to have support coming from STI for the product anymore. B, at some point, your ability to upgrade from that particular program will become a problem. And C, what is C? C is you won't get any maintenance updates. So it'll be difficult to upgrade from that level simply because they will no longer be shipping the update routines. And also, you won't be getting those updates without having to pay for them. So if you're not on maintenance and you haven't updated your software, get on maintenance and get it updated. If you are on maintenance and you just haven't gotten around to updating your software, that's even worse. Shame on you. get it up to version 17.1, and you will be all set. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Mary Jo, who is going to talk about rates. Take it away, Mary Jo.
It helps if I unmute myself, doesn't it? Okay, so I'm going to be focusing on all the places that you can define rates. I don't know if I'm going to get every single scenario, as Paul says, but I'm going to do my best. So the first place that you're going to define rates is under the timekeeper and at that timekeeper level. So when you set up a timekeeper, you have the opportunity to assign up to 6 different rates for that timekeeper to use on different matters later on. So if we go into our setup tab, we go to the timekeeper, and we go ahead and we have 5 of them defined here, but if I'll just bring up Michael Larson, and you can see over here the hourly rates. You have up to 6 different rates that you can define. Now, at the client level, it always defaults to being hourly rate number 1. So if you are going to use anything else, you have to make sure that you understand hourly rate number 1 is the one that it will default to. Saying that, it's hourly rate number 1 for all timekeepers. So if Michael Jensen has an hourly rate of $250 for hourly rate 1, and Paula Ann Martin, let's see what she has. She's got $225 for her hourly rate 1. You have to be aware of what you're doing when you choose hourly rate number 1 at the client level. That's going to choose hourly rate 1 and whatever is defined for all timekeepers in hourly rate number 1. So be careful with that. And that might be what you want because Paul Ann Martin may charge a lower rate than Michael Jensen does, and that's fine. There's some other different things that we can set up if that isn't the case, but just be aware hourly rate number 1 is going to be whatever is set in hourly rate number 1 for all timekeepers here. Same for hourly rate 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can set up different rates here. You can see she's got her main rate. I would always say whatever their main rate is, it's always going to be hourly rate 1. And then she has a couple of other ones that she charges. She might have a discounted rate for a certain situation. She might have, this might be nonprofits, might get a different rate than for-profits. There's all kinds of reasons that you can have different rates in here. But just understand you can set up to 6 for each timekeeper. The other thing I want to draw to your attention is the effective date for new rates. A lot of people get confused on this. They're like, what do I use this for? And what does this mean to move rates? Well, effective rate, let's say that I know that on June 1st, our hourly rate is going to go up $25 across the board for all attorneys. Well, I know that now. It's April. I could come in here and say that as of June 1st, and I could put in June 1st, the new hourly rate for Paula is going to be $250. And I could up all of these $25 if that was the case, or if it's just hourly rate number 1, whichever ones I need to change as of June 1st, I would go ahead and put that in. What this means is that it's going to continue to charge this regular rate that I have defined over here until I start entering time that has a date of June 1st or beyond. Once I do that, it's automatically going to know that after June 1st, I'm going to be using the $250 rate. Anytime after June 1st, I can move this rate over to this column to clear it for the next time that we do rates. Leaving it in this column does not change it over here automatically. You do have to move it, and leaving these rates in here does not mean that you're going to be using these anymore after June 1st. It's going to start using these. Moving the rates just says, okay, let's move them over to this column so this is freed up for the next time we go to raise our rates or we do things with a new effective date. So anytime after June 1st, move it over. It's going to just be the new rate and the default at that point. So this is the first place. So we can define rates, like I said, up to 6 different rates for each timekeeper. And let's go back into the client and see how this all works then. So in tab, when we have a matter, and I'm not going to save for changes to that, at the matter level, we can go into the rate tab, and I'm in an admin account. I'm going to go back and get an actual client here. So let's pick our friend Kelly White. She's in here quite a bit. And let's go to her rate tab. And this is where we define what rates are going to be applied to this particular matter. And remember, it's the matter level, not the client level. So I could say that the same rate is for each matter pushing forward, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to tell it that. I can get right down to the matter level, and this one could have one, and another matter could have another rate. So keep that in mind. Tabs always looks here at this first box and says, is there a rate table defined? And we'll talk about rate tables in a second, but is this rate table defined? If there isn't a little defined next to it, it's then going to look at the level. We have the ability in the Timekeeper setup to also assign a level. They could be a partner, a senior partner, an associate, an of counsel, a paralegal. All timekeepers can have a level assigned to them, and we can actually have rates based on that level. So is there a level defined? Do we want to do a level by the rate or the code or by none? What do we want to do here? And level 1, if it's senior partner, they might all make on this matter $500 an hour, don't we wish, right? I don't know, maybe some of you do. Level 2 might be a partner, and they might make $400. And level 3 might be an associate, and they make $200. Or whatever that is, you can do it by level. And that's what this means. So tabs looks first here. Is there a fee rate table? No. Is there a timekeeper level defined? No. Then it's going to look at this billing rate code. This is where I told you it defaults to being timekeeper rate number 1. Don't be deceived by this little hourly rate over here. If I have timekeeper rate number 1, it's going to be whatever is defined out on that timekeeper field. I could type in anything I want here. It's not going to make a difference. Timekeeper rate 1 is what is on timekeeper rate 1 in the timekeeper setup. Same thing with timekeeper rate 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. These will not change if I put a number in here. If I have these, it's going to go right back to that setup screen. If I want to use this hourly rate box and define something totally different, I have to choose number 9. I have to say that it's hourly rate, and the hourly rate will be, let's say it's $250 an hour. And if I do that, that means I don't care who works on this case, I don't care what timekeeper is posting time, everybody on this matter is going to be billed at $250 an hour. So by choosing number 9, I can define it across the board no matter who works on it. Now the other thing you want to remember is these are defaults that are going to come up on the fee window. They can override those. So a timekeeper could come in and they could put a time entry in for $250 an hour, and they could manually override that and say that it's $300 or it's $175 or whatever that is. This is just going to be whatever defaults on the screen when they bring up the fee entry to put time in. So just keep that in mind. So it does come in here at timekeeper rate number 1. We'll leave that one on there for right now. We'll take out our hourly rate, and that is what it's going to. I thought I changed that to 1. There we go. So number 1, hourly rate is going to just default to the timekeeper. Now let's look at rate tables. So a rate table you can set up as a custom. You can do this at a timekeeper level, or you can do this at a client level, or you can put an individual matter rate table. So let's say we're going to do it as a timekeeper. This timekeeper is always going to have rates of $250, $150, whatever it is. You can set up a rate table for him, and anybody that works on his case would make a certain amount. That can be set up as a client. A lot of times my firms will set that up as an admin client for each timekeeper, and they'll set up the rate tables underneath there. And it's a specific rate table that they're going to apply to specific matters based on the attorney. You also can do it by client. If you go to the base matter, or in our case that's a 00 matter, you can set up a custom rate table for the base matter, and then you can share it with any matters that are underneath that. And you also can share the timekeeper level ones as well with whatever case that you want. But let's do a custom one for Kelly White for her divorce. So let's say that timekeeper number 1, Michael Jensen, on this matter is going to make $250 an hour. And I can save that rate. And what I'm doing is I'm building a rate table of everybody that will work on this case and how much they're going to make on it. So I could say timekeeper number 2 is Paula, and Paula is going to make $200 an hour on this case. Has nothing to do with what's defined over on their timekeeper setup. I'm saying on this matter, whatever I tell it, this is what these timekeepers' rates will be for this particular matter. I would continue this for any timekeepers that would be associated for this particular matter. And I also have that same option with the effective date for the new rate. If I know this is going to change, I can come into the custom, the base one, the custom matter, and I can change the rate with an effective date of June 1st and say the new rate's going to be whatever for each of the timekeepers, save those, and then when that date comes, it will push out to all matters that are using this table. So whenever you have a custom, that's your base, that's the one you'll make your changes on, and anybody that's sharing it will then have those changes push out. So let me save this table, and now you can see I have one that's defined. So tabs will come in and say, oh, here's a defined rate table. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to use the rates that have been defined. No matter what Timekeeper puts it in, it's going to look at that. Now I'm going to go to her 01 matter, and now I'm going to look at that because now, I'm going to save a rate table for that one. Now I'm on the 01 matter. Let's say that this 01 matter is going to use the same rate table that the 00 matter is going to use. I can then share it, and I can come in here and say use the shared table for Kelly White. And any table that you've created as a custom will be available on this list for you to choose to use for any matter. So Kelly White, her 00 matter, her 00 matter there, that's the one I want to use. I want the same rates to pull down and be used on the 01 matter. And there's the same table, and I would save the table and define it here for that. So this can be a really powerful tool for each matter to be able to push out and to be able to use for multiple matters. You also can do that with costs. I'm not going to go into that as much, but it's the same concept where you can create a cost rate table for certain types of costs, and you can then share that as well. Timekeeper Level. If I were going to do a rate, I'm going to say that level 1, again, that could be senior partners, and they could make $450 an hour. Level 2 might be my regular partners. Level 3 could be my associates. All of these could be any levels I have defined over under my setup. I can put in rates here. If I didn't have a rate table defined, if I had gotten rid of this and I came in and I did have a level defined, it would use that rate table. And then finally, if I didn't have anything, it would use what we talked about before with the billing rate table, the billing rate code down here. Now just real quick, we have a flat fee amount. Be aware that this flat fee amount, you can put in here that this case has like a $1,500 flat fee amount. That's not really a rate, but it is something that later on you would put in all of your time at a normal time entry, and at the end of that billing cycle you would bill it out, you would adjust the flat fees. Any of that time that has been put in would then be all written down or up to equal the flat fee amount. So that's where you get this flat fee and what you would use that for. We talked about rates 1 through 6. Now a T-code rate, you can actually set up rates underneath the transaction code. So if I were in, I'm going to go back to my setup, and we'll go under a transaction code, and any one of my fee codes, and the fee codes are all the ones with a type of F. So I'll say open file, and I'll look at this one. There is a rate in here that I could define, and I can say that every time somebody opens a file, it's going to cost $150. I don't know. And I can save that, and then whenever I put in a transaction using T-code number 4, I could use that rate of $150. Now that gets a little bit tricky because you also have to make sure that you have the client set to use the T-code rate, which we normally don't. Or you can also do that with an amount. So just be careful with this one. It's going to be a specific situation that you may use this, and that client will be set to always use a T-code rate. And then we have our hourly rate, which we talked about, that we can then define over here. If I choose this, I can put the hourly rate in. So that is the rates at the client level and the matter level here. We talked about setting them up at the timekeeper level. And am I missing any of them, Paul? Is that probably a good cover? I've taken all of his time for a change, so now he has to hurry and do his.
I thought she was never going to be quiet.
I know. There's so much with rates. And if you have any specific questions, just let me know, because that can be kind of tricky, and it can be matter by matter that you need to set it up for.
But I think it's important to just know what all your options are. You may not understand them all fully. It may take a little playing. You may have to ask some questions. But now you at least have a clear picture of all the different ways that you can get those rates in there. The bottom line is, when an attorney goes to add time in the billing software, he or she shouldn't have to worry about the rate being right. He or she should be able to simply assume that the rate that pops up is the correct rate because it's set up that way. Now, one thing I'll point out is that if we go into Practice Master, Mary Jo, you said that the timekeeper has the ability to override the rated time entry. And
They
that might frighten some people
Mm-hmm.
who are in the billing department. So what we have done at a number of our clients, and I'm getting pop-ups about reminders in my demo data, but what we've done at some clients is we can actually modify the screen in Practice Master. We do not have the ability to do this in tabs, but we can take that rate right out of there, so they don't even see it, okay? So keep that in mind. And another thing I want to point out, and this is changing in version 18, when you enter a new time entry in Practice Master, it does not go out and actually get that rate of zero, or a rate of, let's say, $250 until after it's saved. This has to do with how Practice Master's fee file integrates with tabs. In tabs, when you go to put an entry in and you put in Marcus Phillips as the client, it says, oh, that one we bill $250 an hour when you work on it. It puts it right in here. It fills this in while you're in the screen. It does not do that in Practice Master. So if you've got attorneys entering time in Practice Master, either they have to understand not to freak out that they're not really making nothing for this, or do what we said and simply remove that from the screen. See, I even went on and talked a little bit more about.
Yeah, and he's talking about Practice Master, which is the tabs
I
user
know,
group
it's
meeting.
the tabs, but some of our tabs,
a little bonus for
some
everybody.
of our tabs clients have Practice Master, and some of them, that's where the attorneys are entering their time.
Yep.
Now, it's all right that Mary Jo just wouldn't stop talking, because I don't really have much to say. I'm talking about fatal errors. And the bottom line is, a fatal error is something that comes up. Maybe you've seen them, maybe you haven't. If you haven't, good. Keep your fingers crossed that you never do. But a fatal error is what happens when the program doesn't like what's going on and can't deal with it and has to stop. Now, they could be for a number of reasons. 9 times out of 10, a fatal error is really just the result of some sort of a network problem. Either the network connection was dropped for a momentary bit of time and Practice Master or tabs needed to get to the network and couldn't, or you've got some ongoing network problem. You know, if the power goes out, you're going to get a fatal error. You won't see it, but you'll get it. That's the ultimate network problem, I suppose. So what happens, and I'm not going to simulate a fatal error because I don't know how I'd go about doing that, but what happens is you get a little pop-up in the middle of the screen that says Practice Master or tabs fatal error. It gives the name of the program and the words fatal error up in the title. And then it tells you a bunch of stuff. It gives you an error code. It gives you a traceback path. I don't know what that is, so don't worry. If you don't know what it is, that's all right, because I don't either. It gives you all sorts of information. Now, the immediate reaction that customers tend to have is they want to write down or screenshot absolutely everything that's there. That's good. I guess we've taught people, well, we need to know what the error was. But I'm here to tell you, don't do that. For one thing, if you were to scroll down, that screen of stuff actually sometimes goes on and on and on and on. And so you got to take like 5 or 6 screenshots just to capture it all. For another thing, most of it we don't care about. But the most important thing to remember is we can get to that. I'm in Practice Master. Okay. Let me go back to tabs. Since we are in a tabs virtual user group meeting, we can get to that later. So if you just go ahead and acknowledge the error and then go back in and do your work, then let us know, let somebody know, call STI, call us. We can get to it here. And so if we go into View, Log Files, Error Log, we will load all of the fatal errors that the system is having. Now, this is a good thing to know how to do for a number of reasons. A, it keeps you from having to write all that stuff down or screenshot it and send it to us. You can just make a note of the time and date and then let somebody know. Let your administrator know. Maybe they'll let STI support know. Maybe they'll call us. Doesn't matter. Somebody needs to know that you've experienced this fatal error. But all of the stuff that you would screenshot or write down is here. So when you go into the error log report, or when we go into it, we will have everything we need. So you don't need to worry and have a lot of anxiety about the fact that you need to capture this information, because you don't. The other reason it's good to know about this is if you're an administrator, or if you're somebody who's been tasked with managing tabs or managing Practice Master, it's good to go in every once in a while, every couple of weeks maybe, and make sure that people aren't getting fatal errors that they're not telling you about. Because a fatal error can be a warning to a bigger problem. There can be a bigger problem coming down the road, and if you can see the fatal error and solve whatever's going wrong, then maybe you can avoid having that bigger problem. So that's really all I have to say about fatal errors. Mary Jo's reaching for her mute button, so she's going to chime in. Really, it's just it's just a matter of knowing that A, don't freak out, B, don't worry about capturing everything, but do tell somebody.
I was just going to put in there that, sometimes a fatal error is going to stop you from doing what you need to do. And some of those need immediate attention. And they aren't just a network error or something you're not seeing behind the scenes. You cannot do a function that you have to do. You can't put a fee in, or you can't update statements, or you can't do something. Those are critical. You don't have to write them down, like Paul said. We can still get to them, but you do need to call STI, or you do need to call us so that we can get in and get that resolved so you can continue with your day.
Yep, good point. And if you have Platinum, you'll get less of them because Platinum handles network problems better. It can handle a momentary loss of network connectivity without freaking out. Or if you get that momentary loss of connectivity during something where it would be bad to get it during, like update statements, it can take you back to where you were before you started.
Mm-hmm. And resetting users is another big one that can cause fatal errors. I know that a lot of people are like, just boot them out, just reset them. They're not at their desk, or they're in there twice.
We told them to get out and they didn't.
Exactly. You don't want to just willy-nilly just go out there and start resetting users, because that can really wreak havoc, and you can end up with fatal errors, and you can end up with lock files and all kinds of things. So we don't want to make a habit of just resetting users either.
That's a very good point.
So.
Okay, so that's our two topics, rates and fatal errors. Next month we're going to talk about check register reports in Trust, and lots of different ways to get them. Mary Jo's going to cover that topic. And I'm going to talk about the two most important reports in General Ledger, the income statement and the balance sheet. The reason you're there. How much money did we make? How much money do we have in the bank? Remember, version 15.1 and 15.2 are being sunsetted in June. If you don't know how to tell what version of the software you have, I'm going to get out of this fatal error report real quick and just show you that you can go up to Help and About, and it will tell you right at the top what version of the software you have. And then what I always say at the end is you can find all this stuff on our website at attorneycomputersystems.com. And so if you want more video content or more VUGs, or you just can't get enough of the virtual user group meeting or anything, they're all here. For instance, here's the tabs under videos, and then here's the tabs virtual user group meeting, which we're at. If you click on that, you will get to registration information for the next, which is now the May virtual user group meeting. And as you scroll down, you will see listings with videos of the most recent ones first. This is the one we're at right now, so as you can see, it's currently in post-production. It's not even in post-production because we haven't ended it yet. But as we scroll down further, we'll see that they actually have the videos right there. So remember, you can always come to our website and click on videos and kind of just browse through what's available. We have the 3 virtual user group meetings tabs, Practice Master and World Docs. We have my monthly Coffee Pot webinar series. We have Mary Jo's short snippets that we like to call the eBytes video series, and we have that wonderful, soon-to-be syndicated Paul and Mary Jo show. All of these covering all sorts of different information, and you can even search for what you're looking for. So everybody have a good rest of the afternoon, good rest of the month. I guess it's almost over, and we will see you in May at the Tab 3 Virtual User Group meeting. Thanks much, everybody. Bye-bye.